Forget everything you thought you knew about Africa's place in the world.
Africa.
Africa is no longer a passive actor in global affairs, but an increasingly strategic player, making deliberate moves to redefine its role in the global power struggle between Western powers, China and Russia. It is investing in infrastructure, nationalizing resources, and joining new alliances to take control of its destiny.
A scramble for influence from the world's greatest powers is quietly underway. One not built on colonial flags, but on mines, railways, and trade corridors. As Botswana's president warned at Davos earlier this year, the West has every reason to play its part in Africa. We have China in the wings, and it's seeking to exert influence on Africa. This isn't just about economics. It's a seismic power shift with effects that will ripple across every corner of the globe. Let's dive in. My name is Elizabeth Ann Stewart, and you are watching Geopolitics and Money. Follow the money, decode the world. Let's start with what's happening right now. The Sahel, that wide stretch of land cutting across Africa just south of the Sahara, is in the middle of a political earthquake. 3 countries that recently had military takeovers, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, have banded together to form a brand new club, the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES. In January 2025, they did something unthinkable. They officially quit ECOWAS, the big West African economic bloc that tied them into the Western-backed system. Instead of following old rules, they're writing their own. The Alliance of Sahel States is already talking about creating its own military force and even a development bank to break free from foreign donors. That's not just paperwork. It's a full-blown bid for sovereignty, financial, political, and military. Burkina Faso has gone even further, making a very dramatic move just recently in June of this year, nationalizing 5 of its gold mines. Gold is the country's #1 export, and until recently, Western mining companies had the keys to that vault. Now, the junta is taking the profits straight into state hands, while at the same time inviting new partners like Russia's Nordgold to step in. Translation: Western firms are being shown the door, and Moscow is actually being welcomed inside. More on that later in the show, so keep watching. And it's not just about money. The security map has flipped as well. France, which was once the Sahel's top military power, pulled out in 2023-2024 after years of growing resentment. The US soon followed, shutting down its air bases in Niger. But the power vacuum didn't last long. Russia, which pledged weapons, training, and boots on the ground for the new Sahel alliance, swooped right on in. By 2024, Russian personnel were openly operating in Burkina Faso. That's more than a swap of military contractors. It's a giant billboard saying, the Sahel no longer answers to Paris or the United States. Meanwhile, trade in the US hangs in the balance. The African Growth Opportunity Act, the AGOA, which for decades gave African exports duty-free access to American markets, may not survive under Trump's new tariffs-first trade policy. If it lapses, a lot of African economies will pivot harder towards China, which already buys the lion's share of African resources. But Africa's future isn't just about what resources it has. It's also about how those resources move. On one side is the US and the G7-backed Lobito Corridor. This project runs from the copper and cobalt belts of Zambia and the DRC to Angola's Atlantic port of Lobito. The idea? Give African producers a way to sell minerals westward without going through Chinese-controlled networks. In 2025, Washington's Development Bank pushed new financing to speed it up. But there's a race. On the other side, China is doubling down on TAZARA, the Cold War-era Tanzania-Zambia Railway. Beijing's putting up $1 billion to bring it back to life, giving it an eastward path to the Indian Ocean. But unlike the 1970s, China isn't just lending. They want equity stakes and operational control. That means not just repayment, but also influence. Lobito versus TAZARA, Atlantic versus Indian Ocean, Washington versus Beijing. These aren't just train tracks, they're lifelines, and whichever side African states choose will shape their bargaining powers for decades. Now the real hot topic, the mineral battlegrounds. Because at the center of all of this is the minerals race. Let's look first at cobalt. The DRC produces over 2/3 of the world's supply of cobalt. Prices crashed in 2023-2024, so Kinshasa slapped on export curbs in 2025 to protect revenue. But here's the catch. China still dominates refining and long-term deals. Even when the DRC tries to flex sovereignty, it's Beijing that's still reaping the benefits. Next, the almighty lithium. Zimbabwe is one of the fastest growing mining producers of lithium. In 2022, it banned raw ore exports to force local refining, which long-term might be a really smart move. And in 2027, it's planning to ban concentrate exports too. That means if you want Zimbabwe's lithium, you have to build your plant there. There are also other smaller but still important mineral players. Mozambique's graphite, Gabon's manganese, even Indonesia's nickel feeds into Africa's supply chain story. And guess who runs most of it? China. From Mozambican graphite mines to Gabonese manganese exports, it's China. For the United States and Brussels, it's not just about outbidding China. It's about proving they can offer stable demands and real partnerships that leave wealth inside of Africa, instead of shipping it all abroad. Africa is kicking out the old and bringing in the new. Here's the part that most people miss. Africa isn't just being carved up, it's making choices. France's dominance in the Sahel? Gone. US air bases in Niger? Closed. New partners like Russia and Turkey are being invited in. Let's take Burkina Faso. Nationalizing 5 gold mines in 2025 wasn't just economics, it was survival. The junta pitched itself as the defender of the people's wealth. And while they shut out Western firms, they cut new deals with Russia's Nordgold and even signed a nuclear cooperation agreement with Rosatom. Burkina Faso has become the poster child of Africa's new sovereignty. Let's go over some of the big milestones they've had very recently. January 2025, this year, they exited ECOWAS. They doubled down on the AES alliance with Mali and Niger. In June, just a couple months ago of 2025, they nationalized 5 gold mines, announcing a national gold reserve, which was huge for them. And now something that's kind of upcoming. It's happening now, but then it's also coming over the next year or so. They're handing Russia new mining and nuclear deals. And finally, security. They've welcomed Russian advisors to train a 5,000-strong Sahel joint force. It's a complete pivot away from old Western countries who held influence, and it's a glimpse of what Africa's new order could look like. On the global stage, Africa's voice is louder too. In 2024, Egypt and Ethiopia joined BRICS Plus, alongside Saudi Arabia and the UAE. That gave Africa more weight in a bloc that openly challenges Western-led institutions. It's a clear signal. The continent is playing both sides for leverage. The battlefield isn't only mines and railways, it's also finance. Money, debt, and leverage, in fact. Let's look at China's playbook. After a decade of big loans that left some countries like Zambia drowning, China is changing its game. Now it's about equity stakes, joint ventures, and concessions. Less debt risk for China and more long-term control. But America still has a dollar lever. With the U.S. interest rates climbing in 2024-2025, the cost of servicing dollar debt has crushed African budgets. Some countries are experimenting with bonds in Chinese yuan or Swiss francs. But that carries risks too, like volatile exchange rates. In short, China is embedding itself by owning pieces of Africa's future, while the U.S. wields the power of the dollar. These two strategies, China's integrated equity-backed model and the U.S.'s standards-first, corridor-based approach, present African nations with real choices. China offers speed, fewer conditions, and integrated infrastructure, rail processing, and contracts all tied together. The U.S., however, offers legitimacy, governance assurance, environmental protections, and diversified connections across sectors like digital, agriculture, and health. For countries like Zambia or the DRC, this means true leverage. They can now negotiate not from dependence, but from a position of strength. Here are some things to watch in the next 6 to 12 months. Number 1, African Growth and Opportunity Act renewal. If the U.S. lets it lapse, expect a major pivot to China. Watch the Lobito versus TAZARA race. Whichever corridor delivers first will shape where minerals flow. The alliance of Sahel states integration. A Sahel investment bank or harmonized trade rules would be historic and a massive benefit. Next, mineral bans. The DRC's cobalt curbs and Zimbabwe's lithium export ban could permanently shift supply chains, so be paying attention. Africa isn't just a pawn in someone else's game anymore. It's redrawing the board. Western influence is shrinking, China is embedding, and Russia is rising. But African states are calling more of the shots than ever before. It's their home after all. Shouldn't they be the ones calling the shots? And as this silent economic race heats up, remember, the minerals in your phone, the batteries in your car, and the stability of your energy bills are all traced back to choices that are being made in Africa right now. Thanks for watching, and we want to give a shout out to our Patreon members. If you want to join our Patreon to support our work and get exclusive content, check it out at patreon.com/GPIC. And remember, follow the money, decode the world. Bye for now.